When I was growing up, I was very much influenced by what I saw and, more importantly, what I didn't see on television. Whenever I saw an Asian American man on television, he was inevitably a kung fu master who could kick ass, but he couldn't speak English, or a computer geek who could figure out algorithms but couldn't figure out how to get a date. And for myself, I think I really internalized a lot of these images. It wasn't until I got to high school that I really took a hard look at myself and realized that I didn't want to be or have to be that quintessential Asian geek. And more importantly, I realized that if I kept running away from girls, I'd never get married, and I'd stay a virgin the rest of my life.
Mostly it was the desexualization of Asian men that I think is the most, if you could sort of sum it up in some way, it was, that. I remember seeing Omar Sharif for the first time in a film, and I thought, wow, how did he get that part? It was the first time that I had seen a sexualized image of a non-white character.
What were some of the roles that you actually took that you might have kind of in retrospect?
Those wonderful roles that I took exactly that, a cabbie, and once I even went to an audition, and the director asked me if I had a turban, and I said, well, if I had a turban, I'd be wearing it, because you don't really take it off.
I think if you fundamentally want to change stereotypes about Asian American and redefine Asian American men as being men, you have to do both. You have to show that there are Asian American men who meet that westernized definition, and also change the definition itself.
I absolutely agree. I mean, coming from my own perspective, every time I hear people say, oh, Asian American men shouldn't be portrayed as, like geeky looking and having glasses and being nerdy and all this, I'm like, you guys are like protesting in front of my mirror, you know what I mean? It's kind of unfair to sort of hold us all to that standard. And, as incredible as it is to actually see, people like yourself and Daniel Day Kim and Aasif transcend the historical representation, I guess, of what Asian American men are, there is also a sense in which it leaves some of us behind. And I think that the notion of manhood is changing.
I think we're still lagging. The two most recognizable Asian American male characters on primetime TV are Daniel Day Kim on Lost and Mazi Oka on Heroes. But they play characters who don't speak English, which drives me crazy, right? In this day and age, these are the most recognizable people. They don't speak English. Mazi Oka does at some far distant point in the future, but not in today's world. And, fundamentally, they're still depicted as being foreigners. They're Asians from Asian countries as opposed to Asian Americans. And I think that's something that ultimately needs to change.
You feel like people see, Yul Kwon now and not the Asian guy?
In terms of trying to change stereotypes and getting people to think of Asian Americans as being people as opposed to someone defined by their ethnicity, I think it helps that people feel like I'm a known quantity, that I'm a human being, that they came into their living rooms every year. The thing I'm trying to figure out going forward is, on one hand, I feel like because I'm in this very lucky and privileged position, I have sort of an obligation and responsibility to try to raise the profile of Asian American issues and speak on behalf of the community. At the same time, I think I'm facing what a lot of Asian American entertainers, politicians, and business people face, which is ultimately you're trying to cross over to the mainstream and get that mainstream recognition so that you're not viewed as being an Asian American person. But once you cross over, a lot of people are afraid of getting pigeonholed.
It's always a balancing act. It's like, I was asked to do a film. It was a movie called Hidalgo, which was essentially, and I read the script, and it was essentially about a white guy who goes to the Middle East and sort of takes his Mustang horse and wins a Middle Eastern horse race and beats all these Arabs in this horse race. And it was right on the eve, like they were making this movie just as this country was about to invade Iraq. There was even a line in the movie where the Viggo Mortensen's character says to his girlfriend, I'm going to go over there and win this horse race. And she says, go kick some Arabian ass cowboy. And I couldn't do it. Like that became, then it was a judgment call. So like, okay, that I can't be in a movie that says that. I mean, they may have taken the line out of the movie eventually. It's hard, and then it becomes a battle. Like, like maybe there isn't an environment where you can actually shape that character, and maybe they really do just want the stereotype.
Yeah, it's really fascinating actually, because technology and media kind of, the old cliche is that the internet sees censorship as damage and kind of routes around it. Well, Asian Americans as kind of the most savvy, and in many cases the most educated, have actually been utilizing technology, have been using these sort of other alternative methods to get into places that they've been barred. YouTube, co-founded by an Asian guy himself, Asian American guy.
You got to go where people are watching, right? And so I think we need more filmmakers. We need more writers who can write roles for Asian Americans that portray them in a realistic light, or at least, have the clout to cast Asian Americans roles that aren't defined by their ethnicity. So we need more politicians. We need more visible leaders. I'm positive and confident that we'll ultimately get there, but it's just a question of how quickly can we get there.